Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Medina. We're coming to you live from the Unity of Medina's chapel here in good old Northeast Ohio. So glad you joined us this morning, and happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Might be a good time just to, for you mothers to give yourselves a hug. Just put your arms around yourself and give yourself a little hug. We're so glad you're with us this morning. Our mission is that we promote a movement that calls us to spiritually awaken to our oneness with God, each other, and all creation. We teach and live spiritual principles that inspire shared transformation and service. So as you're preparing to listen this morning, I would just encourage you to carve out a little time for us. Put aside what you're working on and ask the kids to settle down a little bit as we go into our service today. And happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much for being with us. Angie?
All right. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. All right. Join in singing. She's got the whole world in her hands. 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 She's got the itty bitty baby in her hands. She's got the itty bitty baby in her hands. She's got the itty bitty baby in her hands. She's got the whole world in her hands. She's got a you and me brother in her hands. She's got you and me brother in her hands. She's got you and me brother in her hands. She's got the whole world in her hands. She's got a you and me sister in her hands. She's got you and me sister in her hands. She's got you and me sister in her hands. She's got the whole world 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 in her hands.
Thank you, Angie. Today's daily word for Sunday, May 10th, blessing mothers. I bless and honor all mothers. I am grateful for their love. I bless my mother and all mothers. I am grateful for their nurturing love. My mother's love lives in my heart, just as her wisdom resonates in my mind. Whether she has passed on or is still with me in this dimension, I feel deep appreciation and tender affection for those who bless me with their selfless gift. My mother did do a great job at me. She was really good at guilt tripping, so that's appropriate. Their selfless gift of motherly love. I would not be who I am without them. I share the blessings of a mother's care and devotion. I embrace opportunities for sharing affirmative thoughts, encouraging words, smiles, and/or simple acts of kindness. God is the principle of love. I honor all mothers when I use love to express all my feelings of love, sympathy, and compassion. And our Bible reading today is, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Proverbs 31:26. Before we go to Angie, we have a couple of announcements this morning. One of which is, starting tomorrow morning at 8:30, I would like to invite you to join us as we read the daily word at 8:30 in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the call-in number is on our slide. What we'll do is read the daily word, and then we'll pray a bit. It's a great opportunity to check in, start your day off right with some spiritual nourishment. We also have a special announcement this morning from our board president, John Cameron. John is here, and he wants to share something special with you. So, John, would you come up?
Thank you. I just wanted you all to know on behalf of the board that we are beginning the process to prepare to reopen the church. I can tell you that we don't have a date, and we will keep you posted when we have more information. It's our commitment to follow to make a decision based on the governor's directives and the science and medicine, so that everyone can be safe when we reopen. When we reopen, we do ask, though, that you remember we are not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm together, but we're not all in the same boat. We have various concerns. And just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Just because this church is open, if you're immune compromised, if you're elderly, or if you have continuing contact with someone who is, we would ask that you not come back. We are going to continue to live stream these services. We love you, we miss you, we want to be with you, but we want you to be safe. We want everyone to be safe. And we want you to know that you can join us, that you can be with us even though you're remote, through the live stream, through the Zoom rooms, through all the opportunities that we are presenting to share the love and beauty of this church and protect every member of the congregation. Really, that's about all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Here and now, I am free. I go inside peacefully. Where I look, let there be blessings here for me. Blessings here I see. All on a journey, on our way, different paths here today. Where I look, let there be blessings here for me. Blessings here I see. Blessings here for me. blessings here I see.
Friends, Ann Loepp is here this morning to lead us in meditation and to deliver the message. Ann has 30 years in the study and practice of unity principles. She is a 2012 graduate from the One in Spirit Interfaith Ministries. She ministers through her individualized spiritual teachings and prayer support, and she's currently serving Unity of Medina as one of our honored prayer chaplains. Privileged to introduce Ann Loepp.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Reverend John, for allowing me this opportunity to serve Unity of Medina in a different way. As we begin our time of meditation, let's begin with breathing. Take a deep breath in, and as you release, let your body release from physical form. You are free. Breathing in again, deeply, and releasing your mind from distractive thoughts. For you are free. And again, breathe in deep. And allow your soul to release, to float as energy, because you are free. And now, very gently and sweetly, allow your breath to return to its easy rhythm. And experience that freedom. There are no miles, and the space is free to float. We are connected through thought, desire, our passions, and our resolves. Myrtle Fillmore wrote a prayer of faith. And as I read this prayer to you, hear the words and allow them to be your words. And allow them to sift from one soul to another, healing, nurturing as they go. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise. I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through Christ, the truth that is in me. God is my health. I cannot be sick. God is my strength, unfailing, quick. God is my all. I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. Gently now, staying within that space, the forever nothingness. Listen to the love of the goddess within the silence. Very slowly, very gently. Allow sound and sensation to return to your awareness. Breathe in deep, returning your soul to yourself, for you are present. Breathe in deep to return your mind to yourself, for you are present. And breathe in deep to return your body to this space and this time, for you are present. Present and now awake.
So this is a song I picked that I was really moved by the title, Gutsy Women, a celebration of motherhood and the goddess essence. And this is a personal one for me. This is one that I wrote myself. And thinking about being a gutsy woman, I guess. And also thinking about how I know some men who are mothers. I know people who don't identify with any gender, who have a mother energy. And so that's kind of what I'm encompassing here. And I also, there's a line that says, it's in they, them, it's in me, and the you don't know. And that's really talking about that feminine energy, that goddess energy. And this is called You.
If I were a man, suddenly you wouldn't question my validity. But I'm not a man, you can keep score. 'cause I'll do anything that he does, even more. Whoa, it's in all that I have, and in nothing that you don't. Whoa, it's more alive than these veins, and much stronger than your bones. It's in they, them, it's in me, and the you don't know. If I loved a man, suddenly you wouldn't tell us to hide publicly. But I don't love a man. This love can be yours. She allows me to be and drives me to become more. Whoa, it's in all that I have, and in nothing that you don't. Whoa, it's more alive than these veins, and much stronger than your bones. Oh, why won't you see me? I'm right there inside your bravery. It's in they, them, it's in me, and the you don't know. It's in they, them, it's in me, and the you could know.
Thank you, Angie. I am always so impressed by the songs that you choose and how well they fit our themes. Thank you. We are truly blessed as a community to have you. Good morning, everyone. I am grateful to Reverend John also again for inviting me to speak to you today as we celebrate motherhood and the wholeness of the feminine goddess aspects and essence of being a woman. It seems as if humanity's first image of life was the mother. We have many instances of finding goddess statues in archaeology, ones without faces or any sort of personality, only representing that mother. They are images of the creative source of life, and that image is conceived through that figure of a mother, where humanity feels itself and the rest of creation to be the mother's children. As in Genesis chapter 3, verse 20, so Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Looking from the outer appearances of motherhood to the base inner energy of the feminine, we find that in the nature of the feminine, there is life. And there is emotion and authenticity. There is unpredictability and vulnerability, and there is sexuality. We live at the heart of our feminine when we embrace our own ability to feel, to enjoy, and to influence. Feminine energy is about being. It's about acceptance, and it's about receiving. The feminine is an infinite source of love, inspiration, and power, both physically and spiritually. The feminine is in touch with her intuitiveness. She is driven by and listens to her emotions. The wholeness of the feminine stems from warm, kind, and loving energy that comes from the heart and which belongs to human beings ever since the beginning of time. We can make today's celebration of motherhood and the goddess essence a journey toward the wholeness within the aspects of the feminine energy. Let me take you on that journey. I'm going to take that through the sharing of stories that contain courage and resilience, and is told through the book of Gutsy Women by Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton. I had the joy of listening to this as a book on tape, because that's something I've started doing. But I also purchased the book because there was so much inspiration that I wanted to keep it in my library. There's a lot more stories in here than that I could share at this time. So I have chosen one story from 6 categories to give a brief taste of what goddesses can do for this world. 2 stories are not from the book. 2 additional stories are not from the book, but they're important to grasp the whole complete circle of feminine wholeness. Also, I want to make sure that I clarify that the tidbits I'm going to give you are just that, tidbits and major facts. If you wanted to know more about the women that I share, or even other women, please don't hesitate to either purchase the book or look these women up online. They have wonderful stories. So let's start our journey. And I'm going to start it with this quote from Arianna Huffington. "The fastest way to break the cycle of perfectionism and become a fearless mother is to give up the idea of doing it perfectly. Indeed, to embrace uncertainty and imperfection." So that leads me to the introduction of my own mother. Mary Makavina, born as Mary Mozak. She was of Slovak descent, first-generation American. And she was about 4'9", maybe 5 feet. We think she shrunk through the years. And one of the funniest stories is her grandchildren felt they came of age when they were as tall as or taller than Baba, which is grandma in Slovak. My mother had 9 children, which gave her 21 grandchildren. And she felt that that was her pleasure. Technically, though, my mother was not a good mother to my child. She was a perfect grandmother. All of her grandchildren will tell you they loved her to bits. As a young mother, though, there were issues. My mother married at 20. She was her sister, they were twins, were the last children of my grandmother and grandfather, my grandmother being 45 when she had her. So you can imagine she was overprotected, insulated. I think she only worked a year or two before she met my father and married, and then didn't work outside the home after that. That was what she was taught. That's what was believed to be the right thing to do. For the next 17 years, so she was married at 20, the next 15 to 17, I can't quite remember how old, she had 11 children, 9 to full birth, and 2 miscarries. And so I often talk about the insanity of my childhood, and when I look back, I can understand why. That was a lot of kids. She suffered from insecurity, depression, poor parenting skills, because she had none when she married. And as I became older, much older, I began to realize that I was probably not the most easily managed child. As a matter of fact, I really wasn't. And I could see many ways why my mother kind of lost it. Even though my child history, it was filled with chaos and pain, I received 2 life truths and a precious gift from my mother. The first truth was her belief that motherhood was a vocation, her vocation. We weren't in agreement with this when I got older. She couldn't understand why, though I had 2 children at that time, I was still pursuing things like trying to be a priest and going to school and all of that, because she thought that when you have children, that's your vocation and that's your concentration. So we weren't in agreement. I have come to realize, though, that through the years that, and especially after her transition, there is value in her belief and importance. It gave her the courage to never give up. I also learned to value and make important my belief, and that the 2 beliefs didn't have to contradict each other, that each belief could coexist and support each other. The gift that I received from my mother is way multifolded. When I was going through my second divorce, my mother was so disappointed. And she took it upon herself, to think that she probably had failed. And she would say often, I was not a good mother. And before this time, I couldn't hear that. It caused too much pain. And I would never let her really say it. Somehow this time, the idea, maybe, the notion came to me that I needed to let her say that. I needed to hear it, and then I needed to decide to accept it. I did. And in that instant, I was able to agree with her. You were not a good mother to my child. And I realized that there was no real angst with that. No accusation, just fact. So you were not a good mother to my child, I said, but you have been an excellent mother to my adult. And of course, her grandchildren, she was just beloved. That sense of forgiveness freed me. It allowed me to see my mother as a person and to hear her story with my heart. We were able to exchange, I love you, knowing that the sentiment came from our hearts. Thank you. I'm sorry, everyone, I'm a crier. I can't help it. I try, but anyways, we were able to exchange that sentiment of I love you from our hearts, knowing that it was real. And her transition, she was able to make her transition that day in peace. And I am able to live the balance of my life without regret. And so one small words of wisdom. If there are issues with your mother, try to make amends for the freedom you receive, and the wisdom and knowledge you get is unbelievable. The second gift I got from my mother was after my first divorce. My oldest were like maybe 2 or 4. And I was really concerned about being a good father role figure for my son. I thought, I don't have the ability to do what he needs to have done. And I was saying that to my mother, and after her laughter died down, she told me, it is not your role to be a good father. Your children only need you to be the best mother that you can be. That was like an aha moment. It released me from my fear. And those words have stayed with me all these years. I took them to heart, and I broadened the meaning to be being the best person I could be. Because again, though the motherhood was her vocation, it wasn't what I felt was mine. And so I needed to expand that idea of motherhood to being the best person I could be. I spent the remainder of my life first improving my parenting skills, and then consistently knowing and improving who I was as a person, with the goal that my children would know that I was being the best person I could be, and that they could be then the best person they could be. It was an up and down, process, but studying the success stories of others supported my system of self-awareness, and that's what I wanted to share with you today. So my Mary, my mother, embodies the goddess attribute of motherhood as a vocation, the ability to persevere. The second person on our travels is I listed her under education pioneers. They have different categories in this Gutsy Women's book. And there are many women stories of education in there. I thought, though, that Myrtle Fillmore fit our process better. She is known as the mother of unity, the unity movement. And so what better way to celebrate not only motherhood, but her and unity together. For Myrtle, most of her childhood and into adulthood, she experienced as she said, all the ills of mind and body that I could bear. Medicine and doctors ceased to give me relief, and I was in despair. And she struggled with numerous medical ailments with trying to use orthodox medicine that just fell short. And she attended New Thought classes held by Dr. E.B. Weeks and attributed her recovery to her use of prayer and other methods learned in Weeks's class. So I guess we're extending the education pioneers also to, she was a prayer pioneer. She saved many of her letters and her responses, and she that told about the healing power of prayer, and her beliefs are our foundation. While Myrtle was firmly committed to knowing and understanding the principles of the truth of being and teaching them to others, she had an equally strong commitment to putting truth principles into practice through healing others physically, psychologically, and spiritually. She used the discipline of the mind. She felt that you must discipline your mind day after day and control your thoughts so that you will not be full of faith one moment and doubting, wavering, and unstable the next. She used affirmations and said they are just the right arrangement of words to train the thoughts into harmonious ways. And meditations. When you get very still and go into the silence, when you commune with your indwelling guide, you will be shown the easy, pleasant, harmonious, and orderly way out of every situation. And as I read with Myrtle, she used harmonious quite a bit. So that's something, I know I haven't attained that yet, but we can all strive. She felt that children should be taught that God is spirit and that the purpose of their being is to express God. They should be trained in the faith and understanding which makes them to know that they express the Spirit of God in every thought and desire and action. The child's mind accords perfectly with true ideas, and it is easy to rear children in conscious unity with God when they are encouraged through their faith to claim their sonship, and then teach them to pray the prayer of faith, which is what we used in meditation. For me, Myrtle expresses the goddess attributes of learning and teaching, that spiritual principles are available to everyone, young and old. Our next trek down this journey is under the category of Earth Defenders. I'd like to introduce you to Wangari Maathai. She is the founder of the Green Belt movement in Kenya. Wangari earned her PhD in veterinary anatomy at the University of Nairobi in 1971. She was the first woman in Eastern and Central Africa to earn a doctorate degree in any subject. She was the first woman to hold the position of professor and then department chair at the University of Nairobi. Professor Maathai was active in the National Council of Women of Kenya from 1976 to 1987 and was its chair 1981 to 87. In 1976, while she was serving in the National Council of Women, Professor Maathai introduced the idea of community-based tree planting. Kenyan's forests had been deforested since 1950, and so there was a great concern about that, and that's why she started this community-based tree planting. She continued to develop this idea into a broad-based grassroots organization, the Green Belt Movement, whose main focus is poverty reduction and environmental conservation through tree planting. Let me just read you a little excerpt on her. Her mission. She talks about her mission. When we started the Green Belt movement, I was partly responding to needs identified by rural women, namely lack of firewood, clean drinking water, balanced diets, shelter, and income. Throughout Africa, women are the primary caretakers, holding significant responsibility for tilling the land and feeding their families. As a result, they are the first to become aware of environmental damage as resources become scarce and incapable of sustaining their families. And she took that mission on. The opposition for Wangari was that in 1992, her name was put on a list of pro-democracy activists and was targeted by the government for assassination. She joined mothers of political prisoners being held by Daniel Arap Moi, Kenya's autocratic leader, and she was beaten to unconsciousness and denounced as a mad woman and a threat to the order and security of the country. And she didn't stop, and she didn't give up. As a matter of fact, the Greenbelt movement grew to encompass protecting disability rights, minority rights, women's rights, democracy, along with an ambition to fight poverty and protect human rights of everyone in Kenya. And she never gave up planting trees. Wangari expresses the goddess attributes of moral consciousness and personal action. As for healers, we have Elizabeth Blackwell. She was a British physician and the first woman to receive a medical degree in the United States. She was born February 3rd, 1821, in Bristol, United Kingdom. And her quote is, "It's not easy to be a pioneer, but oh, is it fascinating." I just love that. I thought, it makes me feel like she must have been a real character. Initially, Elizabeth hated everything connected with the body. So being called a doctor was not something she was looking at as in her younger years. She actually felt called to medicine after she attended a dying friend who suffered unnecessarily because of no access to a well-qualified woman physician. In 1847, she applied to Geneva Medical College, and the college accepted her as a joke. They didn't really take her seriously, though she took them seriously and enrolled. In 1849, she received her medical degree and shortly thereafter opened a small women's health clinic in New York that grew into the New York Infirmary for Women and Children. In the late 1860s, she opened one of the first medical colleges for women in the United States, and a few years later established the first medical school in Britain, training women to be physicians. And though she was ridiculed, her schooling was difficult because the men, they put her separated her, segregated her. She couldn't do some of the lab work. She made it through, and she began the training of women to be physicians. Elizabeth Blackwell expresses the goddess attribute of caring and healing. Oh, I forgot, you know what, I wanted to read something from her too. One of the things that Elizabeth understood was that Elizabeth understood before most that the life experiences of doctors matter to the quality of care that patients receive, particularly when prejudice and bigotry abound. And that was her main thing, was to eliminate that from the medical field. Then we have advocates and activists. And I chose Eleanor Roosevelt because she is one of my heroes. Her life was filled with struggle, insecurity, adversity, and disillusionment. She was rejected as unattractive by her mother and neglected by her alcoholic father. She was orphaned by 10 and had lost a brother to illness. When she did marry, she had an overbearing and controlling mother-in-law. She lived through the death of one child, Franklin's infidelity, and then his polio. She found her voice, though, And she entered politics on behalf of her husband in the 1920s and became the First Lady from 1932 to 1945, in which she encountered controversy, backlash, vicious personal attacks, and even assassination plots against her. After 1945, she joined the first U.S. delegation to the newly created United Nations. She chaired the UN Human Rights Committee, and in the 1950s, until her death in 1962, she spoke out for racial justice, school desegregation, and voting rights for Black Americans. She even did that through, or in spite of the death threats of the Ku Klux Klan. Her quote calls us to be the best that we can be. She says, "Courage is more exhilarating than fear, and in the long run, it is easier. We do not have to become heroes overnight, just a step at a time, meeting each thing that comes up, saying it is not as dreadful as it appeared, and discovering we have the strength to stare it down." Eleanor expresses the goddess attributes of self-assurance and resilience. Storytellers. I'm sure we all remember the stories our mothers told us. Ali Stroker is an American actress and singer, and she is the first actress who uses a wheelchair for mobility to appear on a Broadway stage. She had a car accident at the age of 2, in which her spinal cord was injured, paralyzing her from the chest down. Her parents taught her to focus on not what she could not do, but on the things she could do. And she realized she could sing. She acted throughout high school and was also the high school class president. She was the first actress in a wheelchair to earn a degree from New York University's Tisch School of Arts. And her motto was to make limitations your opportunities. She had performances in the Glee Project. She was on Broadway in Spring Awakening. She won a 2019 Tony Award as Ado Annie in Oklahoma. She's also an advocate. In South Africa, she creates and works at theater workshops and classes for women and children affected by HIV and AIDS. She founded an anti-bullying campaign called Be More Heroic, helped launch Attention Theater to create more meaningful opportunities for performers with disabilities. And she lived life in joy. As she says, who says that dance isn't turning on wheels? Who says dancing isn't throwing your arms in the air and grabbing someone else's arms to be propelled across the stage? Ali expresses the goddess attributes of joy and authentic beingness. And of course, we have groundbreakers. Frances Perkins was an American sociologist and a workers' rights advocate. In 1911, near Washington Square Park in New York City, she watched in horror as the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory burned and the fire ladders there were too short to reach the upper stories, where 146 people died in the fire or jumped to their deaths. Most were young Italian and Jewish immigrant women. The factory's doors were locked to prevent taking unauthorized breaks or material home with them. After that incident, she became the executive secretary of a new Citizens Committee on Industrial Safety and learned all there was about creating safety in the workplace. She was also a woman that was the first to do many things. She was the first woman named to a seat on New York's Industrial Commission in 1919, a year before women even had the right to vote. In 1933, she was the first ever Madam Secretary when she led the Federal Department of Labor for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Within that, she oversaw the nation's immigration office, sought to expand visa allotments for labor activists, Jews, and other persecuted people from Germany and Austria. That was blocked, though most of her efforts were blocked by the State Department. In 1940, FDR moved the Immigration Bureau from the Labor Department to the State Department and ended Frances's influence. The opposition for her activities was she was decried a communist. She survived an impeachment attempt by Congress and struggled privately with her husband's illness. Frances expresses the goddess attributes of service, vision, and tenacity. Women's rights champions, Nadia Murad Basi Taha. As a teenager, Nadia wanted to be a teenager or open a beauty salon in Koko, Iraq. In 2014, the Islamic State attacked her community. Her mother was killed. 6 of her brothers were killed. She was captured and brutally raped, beaten, and sold into sex slavery. After that, 3 months later, 3 months of torture, she did escape. In 2015, she spoke at a UN forum on minority issues. The first time she would tell her story in front of an audience. And then later she was asked to speak at the UN Security Council on human trafficking. Let's see, something about her in her own words. When she was asked to speak at the UN Security Council, this is what she said. I wanted to talk about everything. The children who died of dehydration fleeing ISIS, the families still stranded on the mountains, the thousands of women and children who remained in captivity, and what my brother saw at the site of the massacre. And that's what she did. Deciding to be honest was one of the hardest decisions I have ever made, and also the most important, she said later. This was a woman whose bravery overcame the torture and her sense of loss. And her bravery helped her to stand up and to call the nations to face the brutality that was going on in her world. In 2016, she was appointed UN Goodwill Ambassador for the dignity of survivors of human trafficking. She's currently working with human rights lawyer Amal Clooney to bring ISIS to justice before the International Criminal Court. Her story underscores the importance of human rights, the rule of law, due process, judicial systems, and international organizations in holding people accountable and serving as places of recourse for the Nadias of the world. Nadia expresses the goddess attributes of courage, voice, and compassion for herself and others. Those are just so many small stories. And if you wanted to feel that you needed a jolt of inspiration, I suggest that you continue reading. Brothers and sisters, here at Unity of Medina, we have examples of Gutsy women too. We had the early inspiration of Reverend Barbara, who lives the unity principles diligently. We have educators like Cheryl Grant and Jessie Pritchard and Carolyn Rames. We have earth defenders like Susan Schmidt, through her organic farming, and Sandy Varndell through the organization of the Green Team. We have healers such as Charlotte Garrett with the Tai Chi, and Linda Stalvey and the Reiki team. And we certainly have multiple advocates and activists, naming just a few, such as Connie Busmeyer with the Alzheimer's Association, Sandy Varndell with the Out Support for our LGBTQ community, Karen Kadusky, a community advocate for the disabled, and Heather Napkit through Napkit's Knapsacks as they bring gentle, compassionate caring for the needs of foster children. We have storytellers such as Wendy James, who dances with the spirit of life performing arts, and our own historian photographer, Pat Cornelius. We have groundbreakers such as Amanda and Raina Betherhoff, who through the fostering of 5 beautiful children together as loving partners are changing the consciousness and mindset of what constitutes a family. And then there are so many others who care for our Unity community's well-being, such as Shar Klimko, Margene Mitchell, Karen Malloy, and Judy Stoynoff, naming only a few. It is right that we follow the directions from the book of Tobit, chapter 4, verse 3 through 4. Then he called his son Tobias, and when he came to him, he said, "My son, when I die, give me a proper burial. Honor your mother and do not abandon her all the days of her life. Do whatever pleases her, and do not grieve her in anything. Remember her, my son, because she faced many dangers for you while you were in her womb." This is why we honor and cherish our mothers today. I invite you to look around and within, to expand your concept of mother, to include the wholeness of the gutsy feminine energy and goddess aspects. Take today, take tomorrow, this whole next week, this next month, and the next year, to support, to encourage, and to give thanks for those women that surround your life. We honor and cherish all of the women in our life experiences because our world needs each and every one of us if we are going to grow, mature, and prosper in a healthy and vibrant way. Namaste, my friends.
Lovely message. And now we get an opportunity to bless our love offerings there at home. So I would invite you to take your offering in your hand, and if you're donating online or however you're donating by mailing your check in, or even if you just want to make a prosperity blessing right now, take whatever energy you have in your hands and let's say our offertory prayer together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I receive. And for this knowing, we are grateful. Thank you, God. And so it is. Thank you, Angie. Everyone, let's say our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And let's close with our peace song.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator. United all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you so much, Angie. Thank you for being with us this morning. Final note, board members will be calling this week. We'll be reaching out to you to get some information from you about reopening. John's shaking his head, and I'm shaking yes, so he and I will talk after service. But we're going to have board members calling you to get your input and to get your information about your thoughts as we begin this process of slowly reopening. Once again, I want to thank Ann Loepp for a wonderful message this morning, and thank you for being with us. Don't forget to tune in to Hospitality Room on Zoom, and the information's on this slide. God bless, and have a wonderful Mother's Day. So it is. Amen.